This game is really hard. No joke this week. Just damn. Today on the Netflix Gaming Club, Death's Door. Welcome to the Netflix Gaming Club. It's a book club for video games where for the next 5 weeks, we'll be playing the best games that are available right now for free on your phone with a Netflix subscription. I'm James Carlisle.
I'm Lindsay Burak.
And I'm Yasmin Thomas.
Welcome to the show, guys. We're in the second half already. It's crazy.
Wow.
I know.
We've survived. Who saw that coming?
I just did a crazy editing sprint, so survived is the word. Like, oh my God. And to celebrate the second half, we're finally back to an action game. I feel like we've been playing a lot of thinking games this past few weeks with Game Dev and Oxenfree. So back to a game where you can just swing a sword and hope for the best.
And you really do have to hope.
Yeah, well, survived also being the theme.
So let's get right into it. Today we're talking about Death's Door. Death's Door is an isometric action RPG. It's also a die-hard Souls-like. More on that later. It was developed by UK-based Acid Nerve, published by Devolver Digital. Quick note on that, you can tell a Devolver Digital game. This might be the gentlest, cuddliest Devolver Digital game ever released, but...
That doesn't make me want to check them out, funnily enough.
Oh, well, don't say that, because in just a couple weeks we'll be playing Katana Zero, but now we're getting off, Mark. This game was originally released in July 2021, and it came to Netflix in December 2023. In Death's Door, you play as a little crow who works as a Grim Reaper, fighting your way through interconnected maze-like environments to defeat and bring in a number of large and unwilling souls. This game does such a great job of introducing itself, I figured we should probably let it do that. So let's talk about the first few minutes of Death's Door. This game starts with you getting off a bus. Like, you get off the bus and you're in this, like, ethereal, black and white, like, retro purgatory. It's like floating remnants of 50s establishments. There's like a diner and neon signs and like that checkerboard floor.
The music in particular in the headquarters area reminded me of like a slinky, jazzy cocktail bar kind of like vibe to it.
It could have been a scene out of Beetlejuice. Like, it really invites you in with the sense of intrigue. Like, the retroness of it, the etherealness of it, those two kind of butted up against each other, just kind of make you wonder, like, where the hell are you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You walk your way over to the Reaping Commission headquarters where you're admonished for being late. And
So realistic, this game.
Well, and everyone's just talking about how, it's hard work, you know? Did you guys ever play or have heard of a game called Grim Fandango?
Love that game. It had such vibes, yeah.
Huge Grim Fandango vibes. Lindsay, do you want to talk a little bit about what reminded you of Grim Fandango in this game?
Just like the atmosphere of it. Like, the gameplay is very different because Grim Fandango is like a point-and-click adventure kind of game. A lot of like puzzle solving and I would say a bit more story-heavy because
Absolutely.
That's what its focus is. But it has that same slinky, jazzy cocktail bar feel to it.
And the Grim Reapers who find their job like tiring
That's
and boring.
true, yeah.
And have that kind of that cynical, that Office Space, that working hard or hardly
The
working.
rat race, eh? From the guy giving you your cases.
Yeah, at one point they say that, like, in one of the few bits of lore you do get, they say that you are reaping souls to power the doors that allow you to reap the souls.
Mm-hmm.
And just, like, nobody really knows why you're doing it. I will say, one of the first things you notice when you get into the Reaping Commission headquarters is a giant crow behind a desk.
Yep.
And I just wanted to know everything about this guy. I gotta say, the other big influence that I felt pretty much immediately was Studio Ghibli.
Yes.
Like,
Oh, yes.
100%.
Like we said, this game is a Dark Souls-like, and it's kind of like brought the Miyazakis together.
The castle boss reminded me so much of Ghibli.
Oh, the castle boss was so cool.
He was so cute. All the bosses were so, like, I was obsessed with the enemy design throughout this. Even the tiny ones that aren't big bosses necessarily, like the little guys you run into as you make your way through the levels.
Yeah.
All of it was so well designed. Like, the aesthetic of this game was so fascinating to me.
And so let's talk about that a bit, because you're in this black and white jazz environment, and then I've never been in a jazz environment. You're in this black and white jazz environment, and then you go through your first door to go and collect your soul, and the game completely opens up. There's color in the world, the music changes, there's this like really bouncy like American Beauty or Dead Like Me or 6 Feet Under style music. Do you know that kind of 2000s early like
I know what you mean.
It kind of reminded me of The Sims a little bit too. Like it suddenly became this very like
Jaunty?
yeah, you're out in the field. You're out to do your job, and your job is reaping. So now that there's color in the game, let's talk about what this game looks like. It's very smooth, I'd say. Like it's not a heavily textured game.
Kind of low poly.
Low poly, yeah. It's very cute.
Yeah, it's way cuter
100%.
than I was expecting it to be.
I mean, playing as the little crow, like
Was already starting you off on a pretty good note there. Yeah.
did you notice that in your inventory, the extra things you collected were just called shiny things?
Oh my God.
I know, the crow aesthetic. They went farther with it than I expected. It's one of those worlds where animals are people. Is everybody just a crow? I mean, some of the characters you meet a little later in the game are like people.
There's the
Gravedigger
pothead
seemed
guy.
kind of human.
The Gravedigger seems kind of human. Pothead is an evolved human. He is a person.
Pothead is like, as soon as I found him in the game, I'm like, this is my new best friend. Like,
Yeah, he's so
I want to
cute.
keep him.
He's been cursed to have the head of a pot. His head is full of soup. Did you get to the part where he offers you some of his head soup?
Yes, I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
I have never wanted to taste anything in real life more. I will be so real with you.
Never want to taste anything less than some guy's head soup. You actually find out later in the game where he refills it. You like, there's like I found a restaurant. All right, listen. This is a combat game. We said it's a Souls-like game, so the first thing everyone thinks in Souls-like is combat. We'll talk about Souls-like games in a little bit, but exploration is the heart of this game.
100%.
You're trying to get through the maze to get to the boss eventually and collect your soul. That's your assignment. But along the way, you are exploring the environments and finding shortcuts to lessen the distance between your entry point and the boss. The way respawning in this game works is that once you die, you start back up at the door you entered the level through.
I think actually you enter the door that's closest to where you died. Because I started the level in one place and then decided to go a different direction at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I died, I ended up at a different door when I started it up again.
Damn, okay. I didn't encounter that. That's cool.
Same. But the thing it does do is you die, you come back through that door, and any of the shortcuts you have established for yourself are still there. Thanks be to God.
Yes, the enemies respawn, but the world stays how you left it.
Which is so useful because I died so much.
Yep.
How long did everybody make it until their first death in this game?
What do you
The
mean?
first
How
boss.
the
The
demonic forest spirit looked at me and I fucking KO'd. Like,
Oh,
what do you mean?
Well, I made it so much less than that. I died on the street you get off the bus on.
What? You can die on the street?
Yeah, you can fall off. I took the wrong turn and I just immediately fell through the world and died. It was like half a second into the game. It was amazing.
Oh my God.
So let's talk about that combat because the combat in this game is stern but fair, I'd say. Like, you're not getting an easy time with it. You have about, what, 5 health points, 6 health points, something like
I think
that?
6.
I think it's 6.
And that's just hits. You can take 6 hits and then you're dead. For the most part, you can't heal, with one exception. So you're trying to get through from your starting door to the boss in 6 hits. Dodge rolling is key. So I guess now's the time to bring in the Souls-like element. Like we said, this is a Souls-like game. And the place that's expressed the most clearly is in the combat. This is the Dark Souls combat loop. You have your dodge roll, you have your attack. I don't think there's a block in this game.
No.
There's a pretty ineffective ranged move.
I liked it so much and then it just kept getting me killed, man.
The ranged,
Like,
yeah.
Like, you can charge it up and that's good, but never quite enough.
You can also level it and make it stronger, but because it never worked for me, I never leveled it, so it became even less effective as the game went on, you know. But the environments are really the star of the show in this game. Like, they're so beautiful, the different places you get. This game really clicked for me in a location called the Ceramic Manor. Every session I played in this game, I would have, like, a goal. I just write on my notes a little goal for myself just to kind of get me through it, and my goal was that I loaded up the game, I'm going to kill a boss called the Witch. And so I loaded into the game, and I'm in the black and white Hall of Doors. That's the Reaping Commission starting area. And then I open up my door to the Witch's ceramic hall, and suddenly
The Urn Witch.
the Urn Witch, all this color comes into the game, and you're suddenly in this very ornate mansion, and the soundscape, like the witch's castle has a thunderstorm in the background, and it was so realistic that I kept having to take my headphones off. I was in like a park, and I was like, "Oh, is it raining?" No, it was just that it gets even worse because there's also like these intermittent whispers that I knew weren't real, but were very uncomfortable when they just got just in your ear every now and then.
It creates like not just an environment, but an entire like atmosphere that takes you with it.
Well, the vibes of each of the levels are so different. It just pulls you along. You just want to see
more.
Yeah,
of the game. That's one of the things that I wrote down about this game is I often find it really tedious to try to explore every aspect of a game and like find every single item that's like in every single corner that's hidden everywhere. But this game, I just kind of wanted to keep exploring and moving forward and seeing what else there was.
And I think that focus on exploration is lampshaded a bit by the fact that the Hall of Doors, as it's called, right? Your hub area is basically a collection of shortcuts into different parts of the world. Like, as the game progresses, you just kind of fill this area up with little doors that send you back to places you've been before. And it just it's kind of like living inside a fast travel menu. Like, it really takes that fast travel element and celebrates it. So let's talk a little bit more about the Souls-like element of this, because this game, to me, looks like someone said, let's make a mobile Dark Souls. Like, and that's kind of where their idea started.
I will say a big disclaimer, I've never played Dark Souls, so if anyone else is listening who has no idea what that looks like.
Well, we'll get into it. Like, so we've said that the combat follows the Dark Souls pattern. The greater, like, boss-based structure, very Dark Souls. We could list all the different ways this game is like Dark Souls, but we run out of time.
In this game, being Souls-like looks like, to me, that the bosses are these huge towering creatures, and you're this tiny, tiny little crow who can just like roll around on the ground and poke you with a sword. And you have to learn the patterns of the boss, and you have to become really good at your timing and your dodging and your attacking, and figure out exactly when is the opportune moment to bust in there and just jab away a little bit, like chip away at his health. That to me is what makes it Dark Souls.
100% on like the timing and kind of figuring out the rhythm and the pattern of the bosses. The thing I did like aesthetically about the bosses, past the fact that like all of them were so, again, I'm going to say cute. I don't even know if that's true. I just like freaks, so maybe that's a me problem. But like I wanted to adopt all of them. But when you're fighting them, they go from like whole to they get cracks, and then they get more cracks, and they get more cracks, and like turn redder. And that was a huge help for me because I was like desperately hacking away, and knowing that they were coming close to the end was like that catharsis almost, I think, is really useful in the battle gameplay.
It took me so long to figure out that was the health bar.
What?
So as you said, as you hit them, they get more cracked and more red. That's how you see like how much
their health. Yeah.
I had no idea. For so long I was playing against these bosses and just like, come on, give me some idea. Am I going to hit this guy for another week? Like, what are we doing here?
Oh my God, no, bestie.
It took me so long.
I mean, how many times did you die on the I liked that it wasn't just a forest spirit, it was demonic forest spirit specifically. But the first boss that you fight, that's when I figured it out, because I died, I think, 7 times trying to beat her. Because I do not have I have the reaction time of like a 1-year-old infant.
I think I died more times than that even. Like I'm really awful at these kind of games, and I have to say I'm really proud of myself for actually getting as far as I did in this game, because it was really challenging, especially with the touch controls. Like, I'm just not a big fan of the virtual joystick
I didn't
movement.
like the toggle myself, no. I kind of wanted... Jamie, did you play this with a controller by any chance?
Oh, you know it. You know it.
As I was playing it, like Lindsay said, like I'm not normally good at these kind of games. It took a lot of pushing through on this one, but the world made you interested enough to do that. But I did keep having these moments where I went, this would probably be so much better with a controller.
I can't imagine how you guys did this with touch. It seems so hard. Like,
it is hard.
It was
it's
so
really
hard.
The demonic forest spirit, no problem. One shot, first time, didn't even dodge, just attack.
Oh, I hate you.
You can actually like just attack that thing till it dies. Like,
oh yeah, but then she starts hitting you with doing the big spinny thing,
that's
and
use
then
the ranged attack. Well,
But you have to dodge, like, she's
that
just,
spinning attack. Yeah, there's nothing you can do about
there's
that.
nothing you can do
That's
about that
terrible.
spinning attack. And then the
That's
other
just all
thing
dodge.
that this game did that I was like, this is both very funny and very gruesome. Like, so much of it is very cute. You're a little crow, all of this stuff. When you get hit, it leaves like a huge blood smear on the ground.
Yes.
I didn't notice
I
that,
was like,
really.
are
No, it's
we
like-
okay?
It looks like you just got hit by a car, straight up. And like, that's 1 life point each. So you're just like, oh my God, that is my brains over there.
So let's talk about some of the other bosses, because this game has some very cool and cute bosses. At one point, you fight a castle. That was like...
The Guardian of the Doors?
That was
Door
the
Guardian?
coolest
Something.
That was the
thing
coolest,
ever.
yeah.
I really wanted that to be the album cover for this episode, but I just couldn't get a good framing for it. You fight an urn witch. At one point, you fight like a frog who's like a king, but all his subjects hate him because his castle is just like ruins, and he's just begging you the whole time not to kill him. It's really sad. The witch is so Studio Ghibli looking. Like, she looked so much like, was it Baba from
Yubaba, I think her name is.
Yubaba.
Spirited Away?
Yeah.
Yeah, so much like her. So speaking of the bosses, mild spoiler, when you beat the large bosses, they have a funeral for them.
Oh my God.
So they have the boss that you just beat lie in state in the boss arena, and like a light shines on their body, like lying there all. And then a character will come in and eulogize the boss you just beat. And I've never seen that before. I've never seen that anywhere before. It's just such an obvious thing, but it was so cute. And I felt kind of bad, you know? Like,
I don't think you have to feel bad as much as like this game does a very good job of going, like, the things you are interacting with have lives outside of you, which is very interesting and very fun in a game where the world doesn't seem like there's a lot to explore, but the world itself doesn't seem that big. You don't get a lot of lore drops. There isn't that much expansion. So it was cool how deep they went in certain parts.
yeah, I mean, this world does feel alive. It does feel lived in. And like, I mean, at one point I found a restaurant, and another part there was like a little town in some ruins, and there were these people, like, it was the subject of the Frog King, and they were all like living under the frog and talking about their little town. I don't know. Did this world also seem like it might be tiny? Do you know what I mean? Do you get the vibe this is a
Yeah.
tiny world?
Well, that's
yeah,
the thing
it
for
is
me.
tiny world.
It felt tiny. It also, like I said, I think I expected a little more lore. Like, the game did kind of end up focusing more on the action elements, which obviously like work very well. I have no complaints. It was more that I think, especially because we've played so many story games, I kept expecting to go a little deeper, and they kind of never did. I mean, you get your big quest because this dude is like, yeah, sorry I stole that soul you needed. You're going to die, so I guess you could probably help me out. Like, he's outsourcing his fucking side quest to you.
Well,
Excuse me.
I will say there is a bit more story as you get deeper into it. I got about halfway through this game, and like, after you beat the first boss, you go to this place that you're not supposed to be at, and there's this weird, like, kind of divine figure who's like, huh, you weren't supposed to get here? How'd you get here? That's weird. Well, off with you.
Get
It's
out of
kinda
here.
Like, okay, cool. I think I know where we're going. I think I found the final boss. All right, cool. Like,
No, I'm not saying there isn't. It's just more, I don't know. I think I wanted a tiny bit more, partially of just like the Reaper Commission.
I want to know so much about the Reaping Commission.
Like, they didn't really give you anything on. They gave you a lot on the worlds that you're in, and they give you all these bits and pieces of like you said, they utilize the bosses. They lean into this. There's random characters you can run into, but the Reaping Commission kind of stays. They're just
So,
there.
I'm not going to actually say what I read, but I did accidentally come across a spoiler that indicates we will get more
Yeah.
about the Reaping Commission
I
late
got
game.
the feeling that there's some corruption in the Reaping Commission. There's some the books aren't someone's cooking the books at the old Reaping Commission. I will say they say something to you very early in the game that's very ominous. They say as long as your door is open, that's to say as long as you're on an assignment, time is moving for you, so you're aging.
Yep.
And like, I know that doesn't come up in the game. Like, I know there's no mechanical thing where you're getting older, but like, it's a weird feeling. Like, I didn't like being told that.
Mhm.
It really made me assume there's more kind of going on under the surface in this game.
One thing about the gameplay, not positive or negative, just a note, there's no like mini map, there's no map. You're exploring these
yeah.
places, but you have to remember yourself the twists and turns that you took to get through, which adds to the explorative element, but is, I don't want to say atypical, but I feel like in a lot of games like this, just by default, that's included. So that was an interesting choice.
That's your Souls like DNA showing up again. Like, no mini map. It expecting a lot of you to like onboard the lore and the
Mhm.
environments and just kind of like get a feel for the world and understand it, you know? Dark Souls games like that, they always feel like you're kind of fighting the game more than other games, I find. Like there's a
Gotcha.
hostility to it. I thought that was an expression of that.
I love your little crow so much, though. Like, I think the other thing they did really well was scale, because you kind of start off and you're like, oh, he's kind of small, but like we're very zoomed out. And then the more enemies you fight, you're like, oh no, he's just kind of small. Like, I'm very little. The world's out to get me.
Oh, I feel that way in the normal world. So we mentioned this game reminded us of Dark Souls and Grim Fandango. I also noticed a good amount of Zelda DNA in this game, like the way it's a series of dungeons that will unlock a new ability for you, and that ability is what you'll eventually use to get through the last parts of the dungeons, sometimes defeat the boss.
Oh man, the Urn Witch area was definitely Zelda-like, especially with like all the smashing that you did in that place.
They
Smashing
really
every
made
urn.
smashing pots like a serious part of the gameplay.
I will say it's not just the Urnwitch part that feels clay-like, though. Like I said low poly earlier, and I stick by that, but also some of the rendering felt very like maquette diorama, like kind of something you made yourself out of like plasticine as a kid, like in a very good way.
So part of that is the isometric perspective.
Yeah. 100%.
I think that's
diorama
also what it
especially.
made. I think that's also what made it seem very tiny town-ish.
Mhm.
So another game this game reminded me a lot of is, it's not going to be a game you guys have heard of, I don't think. It's called Twinson's Odyssey. It's like a 1997, I think, French like children's action adventure game.
I will reiterate for listeners that Jamie is the coolest person on this podcast.
Oh, that sounded so cool. It was one of my favorite games when I was a kid. And it was also an isometric game. It was French and it had some of the same like weird European. It's hard for me I can't point out anything in Death's Door that feels European, except that there's just kind of a vibe to the whole thing.
I mean, castles are very like,
Well, there's that.
we're
sure.
already kind of in it.
I don't know. Maybe it's the music, but this whole game reminded me a lot of Twinson's Odyssey. And so that's not going to mean much to maybe anybody listening. But it was really reminded me of my childhood. That was the first game I ever beat. And so it was so cool to be back, not actually back in that world, but in this little diorama looking world. What makes me think of Twinson's Odyssey now is that there's a moment in Twinson's Odyssey where you find this room full of like space debris. It's like stuff that was found floating in space, and it's like a thimble and a bottle of glue, and it's just like a bunch of Earth artifacts, but they're huge compared to all the characters, and it's just like, surprise, you're tiny. And so, like, I don't know, this whole
The
game
scale
was just kind of
feeling
looking out for
came
that.
up. Yeah. I think my biggest like 2 words for this game were engaging and compact. Compact, not only the aesthetic, not only the way the world is, but like it also feels very like there's so much to explore and do, but it still feels like something achievable. It makes me think like small, but not in a negative way, if that makes sense. Just like
Again,
the right size.
it's like a little Dark Souls in your pocket, you know?
Yeah, the pocket sized, yeah, but like in the right way. I don't want this game to be bigger than it is. I like it at the size that it is.
I could agree with that. I mean, the whole thing felt very miniaturized. It felt very much like, again, a pocket Dark Souls. Like, it felt like all the environments were like miniature versions of the kind of environment you get in a Souls game.
I really liked the like color palettes shifting.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know, the forest one, you've got the greens, and then you've got like the door one kind of earth tones, I guess, more so than anything.
It's becoming a standard quality on these episodes is to have the games with the different paletted worlds.
It's a really nice touch every time, though. Like, I love a color-coded dungeon.
And I do want to say, you know, as the only person who played this on a controller, the combat, if you have a controller, is pretty snappy and satisfying. Enemies die in about 3 hits.
Oh my
so
god.
you feel very effective.
Oh my god.
And if you get those dodges timed just right, you know, you can really go far in this game. I think it's pretty cool. But
Lindsay, did you ever get any of the bosses in 3 hits? Because I cannot say that I did.
Oh, not the bosses. No. I'm not saying you can kill the bosses in 3 hits.
Oh, I thought you were talking bosses, and I was about to be like, I was even worse at this game than I thought. No, of course, the little guys, sure, but
Yeah.
the bosses made me cry.
One thing that I wasn't too fond of this game, but I feel like may have been intentional to make you get upgrades for like the movement portion of your
Mhm.
skills, was that the movement just felt very floaty to me and not like snappy and sharp. It was very, I don't know, it felt like I wished it were more reactive, I guess. I wish it were a bit tighter movement. It was
Interesting.
very floaty, so it made me feel like I couldn't be as precise with my movement as I wanted to be.
It was an annoying thing that you would take a step forward when slashing. That got me killed a couple times because
Yeah.
I'd be slashing at something, but it would take a step forward and then fall off a cliff. And it's like, well, but I had to, yeah. So let's talk a bit about secrets. This game is really good at showing you something just out of reach and then encouraging you to explore and find your way over to it. A lot of the time, it's not like a Metroidvania where lots of stuff will be gated behind skills you don't have. A lot of the time, if you see something, you can go and get it immediately. You just have to kind of take a turn off the path to do it. You can find XP boosts.
Life seeds.
Life seeds. Let's talk about the life seeds really quick. Because that was the only healing mechanic you have in the game. Is that, besides dying or going through the doors, you find these life seeds that are a consumable item. There's a limited number in the game. And in places around the maps, there'll be these fixed pots that you can go and you can put a seed into the pot and then grow a plant and then eat the plant
And then be healed.
And then you can't use it again until you respawn again.
But the plant does replenish its seed when you respawn.
So what was you guys' strategy with the life seeds? Would you use them as soon as you saw a pot, or would you like hoard them? Or
I used them when I needed them, basically, because I found that it didn't serve much purpose to me to save them until just before a boss area, because if you had to refight a boss and walk through, like, for example, in the mansion, walk through all the rooms and hallways and stuff to get to that boss, once you cleared it out, there were very few enemies that would hang around. So I didn't find that I really needed one right before a boss room, so I would just use one when I was low health and just didn't want to die. I wanted to keep progressing further.
Yeah, it was pretty down to just if it felt essential for me. It took me a while to even find where the pots were or kind of like figure out that mechanic. Like I was like, I have a life seed. Where the fuck does this go? Like, can I plant it in the ground? There's a lot of ground. I feel like I'm like, is this a delicacy? Like, what's going on here? So that was definitely, this is also one of those things where I'm like, I probably should have figured that out faster, but I was also just highly stressed half the time. So not thinking at my best. I did Google because I got curious about the life seeds, whether they were like how finite they were basically. And a lot of what I found was that there's enough life seeds for every pot.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So not like finite, but not scarce.
That feels like if you're a real death's door head, that's something you can do after you beat all the bosses is go
just
through
plant every
plant all
single.
life seeds,
that would be really satisfying.
That would be really
honest.
satisfying. I'm kind of thinking whether or not I want to do that. So what else did you guys find? What other secret items did you guys find?
I found a pair of blades, the rogue blades, I think they were called.
I never found that.
It was just outside the Urn Witch's mansion, just slightly to the east, to the right of it.
I found a book that had secrets in it. Or maybe it was a guy at the restaurant.
You found a guy?
At the restaurant, there's a guy who I thought was a guy. He's actually a squid controlling a guy.
Sorry, what?
Yeah, and what you can do is you can drink the urn. You can drink Podhead soup, and if you let him serve you Podhead soup, he will tell you secrets, and that's one of the things he said.
I also, inside the mansion, found an old engagement ring, which I wasn't sure what to do with.
I found that too.
Is that just a shiny collectible thing, or is it useful for something?
I get the feeling you'll, like, at the end of the game be able to use some of these things, but there's a lot of shiny object spaces in your inventory, so I don't know if you could use all of them.
I was just kind of like, maybe it's just being a crow.
Maybe it's just being cute and collecting
This
stuff.
is also what I do as a real life person. I'm like,
As a
ooh,
real
a
life
shiny
pro?
rock in the street. That's mine now. Ooh,
Stealing
a penny.
engagement
Ooh, a
rings.
nickel.
Yeah.
If I found an engagement ring, you can best believe it would be in my inventory. So I'm kind of obsessed with this squid guy you're talking about, though. Like,
He's so cool. He's just like a guy that's like clearly dead, and there's a squid wrapped around his midsection and just jerking him around. It's like Octodad. It's awesome.
I forgot about that game. Holy shit.
Oh, there's a Netflix we need to get.
If they brought that in, I can't imagine how insane that would be on mobile.
So the only other secrets I found an umbrella, which I don't know what to do
me too. It's just a shitty weapon that it's a collectible weapon.
Oh, yeah, you think? I don't know. Maybe it'll be like a really rainy level.
No, I
leave the
think
umbrella.
you get like an achievement for beating the whole game with that umbrella or
Oh,
something
cool.
like that.
I also found a like giant hammer that shoots lightning. So like I like that more than the umbrella.
Funnily enough, yeah. Also, like, this is one of those things that's slowly coming back to me. Which urn lady, was she grandma?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Okay.
She was Pothead's grandma. And then
Oh,
Pothead
she's
is like,
Pothead's grandma. Because I just remember like the grandma title screen coming up and me being like, my grandmother also did like pots, so I guess they're just tapping into my psyche here.
I failed Pothead. He says like, hey, can you help me convince my grandma to reverse the curse or whatever?
Make me not have a pot.
Because she gave him the pothead because that will make him live forever. Because the death can't find you if your head's pot.
Oh,
and so
this is a really interesting death mechanic. Then
that's interesting because we did find him.
Yeah, totally. And I killed his grandma without. And
maybe she should have had a pothead.
Well, he says at the end, like, "Oh, okay. Well, we didn't really. All right." I was like, "Oh shit! Did I fuck up? Was I supposed to like talk his grandma down? I don't know.
I'm pretty sure we were supposed to beat her ass, but unfortunately,
she shows up and talks shit. That's a cool thing about this game. That's not like Dark Souls games. Is that the bosses will show up and be like, "You don't have to do this. You can leave. Also, fuck you," and like. By splitting that hair, it really motivated me to kill the grandma. So, who would you guys recommend Death's Door to? Yasmin?
People with reflexes better than 1-year-old infants. People who can plug controllers into their phone. I don't know if I can do that. I need to learn how Jamie does it. That can be my quest for next episode. But yeah, no, I think people who enjoy exploring for sure, but people who enjoy exploring and don't mind like bleeding a little to get there. You really got to emphasize that part when you're laying this game out for somebody. It's really satisfying, but it makes you work for that satisfaction.
I would recommend this game to anybody who doesn't mind their thoughts flickering back and forth between I love this game and fuck this game.
Yeah, it really was hard to fall down on a side sometimes.
Oh man,
on this game. I don't know. I got to the point where every time I was loading it up, I was just so excited to see what was next and like to see the characters and to explore.
Me too. I found that like even though I did have moments of fuck this game, I actually kind of loved it. Like it was a really satisfying game, and I actually felt really accomplished when I finally beat the things that I was working so hard to beat.
You definitely like. There is no more potent drug than beating a battle in a game like this, because it's so much work. So much work.
I will say that the focus on being a Souls-like and the adherence to that, I think, necessarily kind of reduces the accomplishment of the game in a way. Like, it sets out to be a Souls-like and accomplishes that mostly. And I feel like the game there might be a better game here that isn't trying so hard to be something else. But the exploration is beautiful. The environments are great. The characters are so cute.
The combat mechanics are good, if tear-inducing.
There's always another secret around the next corner. This is a real ass game in your pocket that you can just play. Buy a controller.
Yeah. Definitely recommend not using the touch controls for this one.
The touch toggle haunts my nightmares.
All right, so we're going to take a break and go buy some controllers. And then when we come back, we'll do our B-side with recommendations. All right, so now we're going to talk about some other things in case Death's Door was too hard for you. Lindsay, how about you go first?
So I watched a movie this past week called A Perfect Getaway. It's a 2009 horror film about a newlywed couple that's celebrating their honeymoon on a secluded hike in Hawaii. They come across a group of freaked out hikers who claim that another newlywed couple has been murdered, and then it becomes unclear about who is trustworthy.
Cool.
So I quite liked this movie. I felt like there was a really obvious plot twist they could have gone for that they didn't go for, but I still figured out the ending of the movie about 20 minutes in.
Okay.
Without giving away what exactly I realized. When they finally do reveal the plot of the movie, there's a lot of like clever details early on that are kind of placed in the movie that kind of gain a second meaning.
Yeah. It's a rewatch.
But I mean, they show you a lot of those moments in the movie, like again.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
To show you like, oh, here's the things we sprinkled into the movie.
I don't like when movies do that. I like when I like the confidence of letting you just go back and see it again.
I like that too, but there was one of them that I definitely would have missed like the double meaning of had they not pointed it out. But that could have been a good like when you look up a movie after you watch it and you see people's theories online and it's like kind of like a thinker, that would have showed up somewhere there as like, I bet this was intentional. But I don't think I would have picked up on it on a second watch myself had they not shown me that
Highlighted it.
moment.
Sure.
But
I will say most importantly, what Lindsay hasn't mentioned yet is that it stars my one true love, Mila Jovovich. And it is one of the better movies I have watched just for her.
Mila Jovovich? God, she hasn't been in a movie in a while, it feels like.
Monster Hunter was like 2023.
She hasn't been in a movie in a while, it feels like.
I mean, is Monster Hunter worthy of acknowledgement? No, but she was in it, and it happened to all of us.
Yeah, Monster Hunter fans, I'm one of you. Don't
watch
bother
that
with the movie. It's not worth it. It's not worth your time. It's interesting to see some of the monsters like come to life on the screen, but it's such a bad plot. They did it dirty. But yeah, I would recommend this movie. I thought it was really well done. I thought they went for like the least obvious direction with their plot. And that's the only reason why I was suspicious that they were going that direction, because I am a writer and I spend my time thinking about these things.
How about you, Yasmin?
I watched a seminal horror classic this past week and had one of those experiences that I haven't had, I think, since I watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre for the first time, where you watch something and you go, oh shit, this is the blueprint for like 12 things I already love. I watched Jacob's Ladder.
Oh, yeah.
That's on my list.
That's a great movie.
Dude, you've gotta. Because it genuinely was just me watching and going, wait, that's Silent Hill. And this is this. And this is this.
Jacob's
and this
Ladder
is this.
is like the Silent Hill
It is the
inspiration
blueprint.
text. Yeah.
It is incredible.
Oh,
It's
awesome.
one of
Love that
It's
movie.
also one of those movies where like you can see some, I don't know, cliches or like things that I wouldn't enjoy in another movie, but the way that this movie does it or reinterprets it makes it like interesting to you again.
We're talking about homoerotic massage scenes.
I didn't even find that homoerotic. I was like watching it and just in the back of my head going, if this movie had anything to do with the legitimization of chiropractic as an actual form of like quote unquote medicine, I'm gonna sue.
Oh wait, he's not a masseuse.
He's a chiropractor.
And also maybe an angel?
Could either or. He's also, in case you're wondering, that's Danny Aiello. I don't know how to say his last name. He has the weirdest collection of like, he's Italian and all of his roles are also like Italian Americans,
Sure.
but the range is like Johnny Camerari in Moonstruck to Sal in Do the Right Thing to the Italian chiropractor in Jacob's Ladder. Like,
That
what is
was-
this man? His agent is insane.
That
is
was
what I'm
Sal
saying.
from Do the Right Thing.
That was Sal from Do the Right Thing.
I knew.
Which I also watched this week, and I will tell you the tone shift of seeing that man again like 2 nights later was...
So I didn't trust him in Jacob's Ladder the whole
And now
time.
you know.
I'm like, nah, man, you shouldn't be in this neighborhood. You like this business is. Yeah, I don't know, man.
There's something about pizza that's really calling to me right now. Yeah.
Well, I was just waiting for Jacob to throw a trash can through his window the whole time. Those are some Do the Right Thing jokes.
You should watch that movie as well. It's also a fantastic film. But Jacob's Ladder, highly recommend. It's like psychological horror thriller.
So much fun.
Just like beautifully rendered. A lot of like fun, gross stuff. A lot of paranoia. You don't know if he's crazy or if you're crazy or if things are just not what they seem. Like layers and layers and layers. And a twist ending that could have been disappointing in anyone else's hands. So,
Whose hands was it in?
Adrian Lin. The most incredible thing about Adrian Lin, by the way, is that his Wikipedia description starts with, he is best known for directing films that focus on sexually charged characters and often uses natural light, a fog machine, and other effects to create eroticized atmospheres.
Okay.
That's not Jacob's Ladder,
That's
so
not
I don't
Jacob's
know
Ladder.
what the hell this
I don't know
man
what to say.
did.
Although Fog Machine, again, your Silent Hill
True.
connection. Yeah, if you like Silent Hill,
You
Jacob's
will
Ladder
like
is a
Jacob's
must
Ladder.
watch.
It's fantastic. I can't recommend it enough.
Just the production design, like all that chain link and everything. It's so good. Jacob's Ladder rocks. So vibey.
So vibey, so much like lore that they like dip their toes into and then back away from and then dip their toes into and then back away from. Like,
Also has an incredible ice bath scene.
yeah.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Anyway, good movie. Good movie.
And you?
Yeah, so I watched Double Fine's Psychodyssey. It's a 20-ish hour YouTube documentary about the making of Psychonauts 2 by Double Fine. Fascinating documentary. Double Fine likes to bring in a documentary crew and just record themselves all the way through the game development process. So
That's crazy levels of openness, because
It's
you say
insane.
all through, like we're talking from the beginning when they're
7 years
Holy
of development from
crap.
funding to release. Psychodyssey is very cool because it's Psychonauts 2. So Psychonauts was kind of the game that made Double Fine's name in the early 2000s.
like,
And then Psychodyssey starts in about 2014, 2015, when they come together to make the sequel 15 years later as successful indie game royalty. And it's scary because they're a AA studio. They've got no money and they're really trying to pay the bills every month. And you watch this project come together from nothing that should be the capstone for this successful business's whole career. It should be the coming home moment, but it's a troubled production. And a lot of people who you think would be good guys kind of start looking like bad guys.
oh.
And it's just a very dramatic production, and it didn't come easy, and it wasn't the homecoming they wanted it to be. And they spend a lot of the time looking at the game being like, it just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel right. And at the end of the day, Psychonauts 2 came out and was pretty well loved. It was really considered a success. And you really see the blood and the sweat and the tears that went into that. And it's beautiful and really has a lot to offer a prospective manager or creative on how to hold your creation lightly and how to usher it through unsure times, how to manage artists and the importance of bottom-up managing as opposed to top-down, and just the importance of maintaining a culture at a workplace and how difficult and precarious that can be. Great
100%.
documentary.
That's the kind of thing that always interests me with project documentaries. For me, it's less about the product itself and more about the management structure and the pieces and the people and like how
everything comes
everything
together.
comes together 100%. So sounds like a good one.
It's really revealing. It's really, I think, has a lot of value to anybody who's part of a group creative effort. So that brings us to the end of this week of our own group creative effort. Next week, we're going to be playing The Case of the Golden Idol. So Yasmin, how about you read us Netflix's description for The Case of the Golden Idol?
Dive into the twisted mystery of a family's cursed heirloom. Examine clues and use your powers of deduction to solve a series of grisly murders.
This game is fun. I am really looking forward to talking about The Case of the Golden Idol. This is another game where I'd suggest get as far ahead in the game as you can before you listen to the next week's episode. We won't be going into it as exhaustively as we did with Oxenfree, but this is a game you might want to discover for yourself first. All right, that'll do it for now. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. The Netflix Gaming Club is produced by Big Bad Audio and engineered by Andrew Blythe. The show is hosted by me, James Carlisle, Lindsay Burek, and Yasmin Thomas. We'd like to thank the High Loves for the use of our theme song, Sure of It. Check them out wherever you listen to music. As always, if you like what you hear and want to help us grow, please rate us on Apple or Spotify, the higher the better. Or, if you're not into public displays of affection, you can always tell a friend, or find someone to play these games with, and we'll be here for you guys after you do. Special thanks to Rob Schulte, Windy Pretty, and the Netflix Gamers Discord community. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.